Thank you, everyone, for coming. And thank you, the organization, and thank you, Fraser, for organizing this. It's, I was going to say it's very nice to be here. I'm not really sure it's very nice to be here, but I will explain why I'm saying that. So I'm going to start with a little bit of the basic. So my name is Elena Veguillas. I come from Spain, from the north of Spain. That basically will be the same as being Scottish, I guess, in this country. I'm many things. I'm a writer, I'm a designer, I'm a publisher, but here I'm mostly as a designer and as a researcher. And I work for TypeTogether part-time as a communications manager, something like that. So I'm a graphic designer, and I work as a graphic designer. And basically, I'm going to talk about part of my PhD that I just finished, almost. I just sent it to the printer, so I will have the copy, like the last copy, next week, hopefully, in one part. This is the title of my presentation, Truman's Through Practice. And you will say, what is Truman's? Well, Truman's, this is the main topic of my thesis. It was like a really big brewery that was in the UK, mostly in London. And I'm not going to talk about like the content of my thesis today, but I just wanted to give you like a little bit of context. It was one of the largest breweries in the UK. Only in London I've been able to locate about 500 of them, although they claim to have more than 1,300 pubs across the country. And again, I've been able to identify about 1,000 of them, 900 or not, 900 to 1,000 of them. The other 300, I don't know where they are. Maybe it was just pure marketing. The company is long gone, but many of the pubs still exist in London, and I've been able to locate them and visit them and photograph them, which is part of the research. And it gave me the opportunity to go there and photograph them and take a lot of beautiful pictures of lettering, but that's not exactly what we're going to talk today, so I'm sorry about that. The big question of my research is how could a company that big manage so many pubs and create like a branding and a visual identity that was obvious and it was identifiable, like you could identify the pubs and you can still see them. How could they do it in a time where we've learned that there was no corporate identity? So that was one of the questions throughout the research. And the other question is, how do I deal with this amount of information? Like, how do I do it? Like, yeah. So what I'm going to talk today, or what I want to talk about, is the methods, and is not just about what I did exactly, it's the journey through the methods. So it's my own struggle as a graphic designer, as a researcher, through the methodology. And I was thinking now, like, I was going through not just one imposter syndrome, the classic graphic designer, but also two imposter syndrome, because I didn't feel like a researcher. So I had to struggle through those two things. So as a happy new PhD student, I started to read a lot, and a lot of things happened and came to my mind. And there was a lot of things that I could not understand. Honestly, I was reading them, and I wasn't able to understand anything. All of these were just going through my brain and going in, going out, and I was unable to understand exactly what I was looking at. When all these people giving me these words that had absolutely no meaning for me. Maybe I'm very obtuse, and I was reading, and yeah. And I was trying to understand what design research is, what is practice-based, what is my practice, am I a practitioner because I do graphic design, what kind of graphic design I am. So all this was happening, and just give me a second. And I knew I didn't want to do quantitative research because I'm not that kind of person. Like, I can take a lot of numbers and put them in a table, and they mean like nothing to me. I need to see it. But at the same time, I want to like explain where I came from, like literally where I came from, and this is basically my background. So these are my parents. So this is my father and my mother. They are both retired. They are both teachers. They both studied chemistry. They actually met each other under the V because they were in alphabetical order. So they both work at the lab, doing the research, and this is what a researcher was for me. Someone with a white coat, doing this kind of research, mixing things, and well, playing with my brother at the same time, I guess. And I was still struggling. So what are the methods? And I did what any PhD student does, that is asking your supervisor. And my supervisor was coming from cultural studies. I had different teams of supervisors through my PhD because it took a long time and for different reasons. So she wasn't a graphic designer. And I was asking her, what are the methods? Like, I need to know because I don't understand anything. And she said, well, methods are methods. So, okay, this is not going to take me anywhere. But that's okay. So I did what any PhD student can do, and is to read a lot and take a lot of notes, and spend a lot of time taking notes and thinking, well, maybe I am a little bit more obsessive than what I thought I was. And I was counting the other day how many articles and books about methodology I have on my bibliography, and it's exactly 100. And those are not the ones that I've read, because the ones that were not relevant, I didn't include them on the list. There's way more that I read. So I was really trying to understand what I have to do as a graphic designer. How can I deal with this information? How am I going to do this? Because I can't just go and measure all the letters, like all the serifs. What is that going to tell me? Okay, they use sans serif in 50 pubs and serifs in another 60. It's like, but eventually I kind of got into the kind of the journey of the journey of the methodology, and I did understood that I had to do something that was qualitative. That means like subjective and interpretative. So I was going to be present on the research. It was going to be practice-based or practice-informed. That means I was going to do things and I was going to use them, and everything was going to be under the umbrella of design research. And this was also like a big thing. So if you have been reading about design research, you might know, I didn't know this before, but now I know it. There's been like 3 waves of design research. The first one, designers wanted to be like my parents. Like they have their white coat, they were doing all this research in the 60s, and they were trying to put themselves outside of the research. So like being a bit like science. The second wave, I've read many articles, no one says what happened. They say it's a reaction of the first one. I see Mary might know the reason for that. But I take it as a moment of transition between the first wave and where we are now, where design research exists as a way to do research. Although now there's even more reactions where there's a lot of theories now that does it actually exist? It's just research. Why do we have to call it design research? Well, because we do things a little bit different, maybe. So at some point, when I was reading these more than 100 articles, I found Nicolini's text about a way to look at things that is zooming in and zooming out. And this is not a methodology, this is a theory. So basically you can use any method that you want, but applying this kind of sense, this approach. And it was very useful because I could see it. So this kind of lens that goes in and out, that you can look at something at the wider picture, or you can look at something in detail, it really resonates with what micro and macro typography are. So I took it like, okay, this is going to help me because this means I can look at my 500 London pubs and look at the wider scheme, or I can go into the detail and just look at the serifs or the sans or the letter forms or anything that I want. So this is more or less what happened. Like I pendulate from the wider to the detail. I didn't want to choose just one. Maybe I should have, but now it's easy to say now when everything is done. But I felt that if I left one part outside of the research, it wasn't going to be the same. What was I supposed to say here? Oh, yeah. So, so to start, I knew there was like a lot of pubs, but I needed to have the information and I needed to collect it. And obviously, I was doing this kind of like getting all the information, so I was able to create like a database that had like, I don't know, 900 pubs. I only used 500 of them, but this was like the basic, like my Bible, if I want to use a word that says everything. This is from early days, so this is not even representative of how this is now. With this, I was able to map all these pubs, go to visit them, see where they are, go back to my table. So that's why the qualitative thing is there. So it wasn't like a linear process. Life is a linear process. A PhD is not. So you're always going back to the beginning, questioning, why am I doing this? I have no idea. Is this actually something I can use? I have no idea. But basically, you keep going, and you keep thinking about the things that you're doing. That takes me to the next one. So this is one. So I started to do this kind of zoom in, zoom out thing. So I'm doing things. I'm reflecting about them. I'm thinking about what I'm doing. I'm thinking about design, and I'm thinking about what I'm collecting. So it takes a little bit of what Donald Shawn was talking about, reflection in action, reflection on action. So basically, you're doing things and thinking about them while they happen, or you're doing things and thinking about them later when you're taking a shower, or when you go to bed, or when you are running, or when you're doing anything else, whatever. You're thinking about, oh, but that thing I was doing, is still right? So some things were useful to look at the wider picture, like those timelines. And more timelines. So this is a timeline with all the pubs together, but there was a lot of noise in these ones. So I did try to make it a little bit more particular to looking just at the branding. So there's pubs, and there's names of pubs, and there's the icon that they use, the black eagle, because it's the name of the brewery. And then I tried to look at things more in detail, because I wasn't very happy with looking at things in the wider aspect. So I started to play with this kind of collage, and I think this happened. I have to be very honest. Some like working at night and not knowing exactly what you're doing out of desperation, because there's no way to organize pubs. It's just they're so annoyingly different. So I started to do this, and I sent it to my supervisor. That was a different supervisor now, and she said, "These are fantastic. You need to keep them. Keep doing them." So I kept doing them, and I have to say that once that I was able to look at them and remove the noise from the pubs, from the photographs and everything, there was like patterns that started to emerge, and I was able to see them, and I wasn't able to see them before when I was looking at this. So I had to go back to one place to the other. I was also doing other things because, of course, as a designer, you keep trying things and trying, how can I look at this in a different way? How can I isolate a pub? Well, that's the wrong way to do it. And then, I discovered that, well, not discovered, but I realized that I needed to, I couldn't just vectorize the pubs. So those are real pubs. So those are like 200 pubs, like shaping them. You really have to make them into like a universal shape, let's say. So, okay, I can do that. So, and this, I was just trying to see what kind of materials, what kind of positions, how did the brewery was using the external buildings. So again, like testing things. At the moment, when I did this, I thought it was not useful, so I didn't really continue with it. And then at the end, it was actually very useful. But at the moment of doing it, my thinking was like, why am I doing this? This is useless. But when I arrived to the end, it was like, actually, it was very useful, and I'm actually going to use it. So the reflection was like changing all the time, I guess. So back to do more collage. And at some point, well, I was so lost. I had so many things. These are only a few of them. I had to make like another table with all the material that I had, and I had to say, okay, this is done, this is in progress, this is not. So I was able to find them, send this to my supervisors who were a bit lost, like, okay, I think you've done a lot. I said, no, I'm going to do a few more things. Then I was a little bit obsessed with details because this Nicolini zooming in and out allowed me to get into real detail. So I thought, I think there's something about the proportions here. How is it possible that they kept a lettering that looks very similar from the 19th century to the 1930s? So I was trying to find out if the proportion of the letters and the space between the letters was the same through time. So like when I was putting this presentation together, I thought like maybe I'm a little bit more obsessive than what I thought I was. So this is the visual timeline of proportions and spacing. And I was trying to see if it was like consistent through time. And I think it is quite consistent. So I linked this to the idea of teaching and apprenticeship and people like working in the company for a long time. And so that kind of thing. So this kind of material helped me to maybe understand how they were working. You have to understand there was absolutely no documentation about Truman's. There was nothing that would say, we did this because of this. No, everything has to be deducted from what I was seeing. And for me, looking at a million photographs didn't help. I couldn't just take one photo and write an analysis and move on. There was no way I was going to write a PhD like that. So this was like a continued kind of, like going back and forward, trying to understand what and why they were doing things the way they were doing them, the way they were doing them. And this is the last one, the last thing I've done. It was for the exhibition that I held at the end of the PhD. It was part of my viva, and it's a timeline of a selection of the Truman's pubs. And I realized, well, this is something I realized through the journey, was that I wasn't studying lettering or branding or corporate identity. I was studying how to learn to study branding or lettering or corporate identity. I think at some point I realized that is what a PhD is about. Like this is an excuse to learn something else, like the skills or the tools of how to learn. So I was this is black on purpose. I was about 2 months before submitting my PhD. This was last year, and I was doing the writing. And if I'm truly honest, I still had absolutely no idea how I was going to explain how I did it. I did all these visuals, I did all the graphics, but I wasn't able to explain it, to put it into words, because maybe I did not quite believe my methods or my methodology or my graphic design skills or abilities, or I don't even know how to say it. So Catherine Dixon, who's here today, who's a teacher, researcher, graphic designer, and an expert, sent me a few quotes 2 months before submission. And these 3 quotes just click on my head. And I thought, well, I got really, really happy for having them. And suddenly seeing that design is about thinking, I thought, why didn't you send me this before? But it's never too late to be a good friend, I guess. But also I realized that probably if I had seen these like years before, I probably would have not noticed them, because I don't know, I wasn't ready. I didn't had enough in my brain to understand them or something like that. And I'm just about to finish with basically saying that everything at the end was very simple, but simplicity takes a lot of time. And I understood what I have done for my research. I basically have used graphic design to help me think. I have used graphic design to create tools to help me think. And I have used graphic design to transform knowledge into new knowledge. And just to finish, I would like to say that this talk was the talk maybe that I wanted to hear when I started. So if I could just say, like, to my previous me, like a younger version of me, it will be fine. You will eventually do it. And that's it. Thank you.